So I'd like to welcome everyone, members, officers and members of the public to this meeting of the Planning Control Committee. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to explain how proceedings will work. Amy.
Can I confirm that the following officer attending remotely can hear us and we can hear them? Natasha Jindal.
Yes, thank you. I can hear you all clearly.
Lovely, we can hear you too. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted to your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, the microphone will be made live and it will turn red, at which point you can speak. When the public participants are invited to speak, their microphones will be made live by the committee officer. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how the members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and will be visible on the YouTube live stream. In the event of a tie, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? No, I'll hand back to the chair then. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from councillors Ruth Brown, Louise Peace, Tom Tyson and Dave Winstanley. Having given due notice, Councillor Tina Bartos will substitute for Councillor Peace and Councillor Daniel Allen will substitute for Councillor Winstanley. Are there any further apologies? Minutes of the meetings of the 17th and 24th of July 2025. I'd like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meetings held on the 7th. Take one at a time, I think might be easier. Or I do it as one. The meetings held on the 17th of July 2025 and the 24th of July 2025. May I have a seconder? Councillor Prescott, are you seeking to second or to comment? In which case, I'll take the seconder first.
I can second and reserve my right.
Thank you. Any comments on the minutes? Councillor Prescott.
Whilst I think the minutes do their usual good job of reporting on what actually took place or the key points of what took place on the meeting on the evening, I think under the reasons for decision, and this is just a suggestion, I'm not going to lose too much sleep about it either way, but the point number 1, to explore potential modifications to the scheme to have further minimal impact to Swangley's Lane Gateway Junction. One of the primary reasons for us taking the decision to defer was to give the highways officer and the applicant, who you will recall expressed a willingness to consider, the time to see if they could figure out a way to keep the road open. And I wondered if it might be worth actually just mentioning that in those reasons for the decision.
Yeah, thank you for raising that, Councillor Prescott. On reflection, and having spoke to the office, I think the wording as it stands probably not only suffices, but I think it keeps it more open. What I wouldn't want to do by making it specific is to sort of shut down the options that are looked at. So I think our view is that the minute as it stands covers the point you've made, but also allows more flexibility to look at other options. And I would be wary of sort of shutting it down too much by making it too specific. But
that certainly wouldn't be the intention. And as I say, I'm not excited about it either way. I think the minutes do a good job anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor May.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to clarify on page 8, the first paragraph, the second bullet point there talks about the other type of flooding. So the first bullet point talks about fluvial flooding, so flooding from rivers. And the second bullet point says the other type of flooding was from storm surges, but I think that should read the other type of flooding was from surface water flooding rather than storm surges. And it goes on to talk about that being outlined on page 88 of the report. And I look back at page 88 of the report and it's talking about surface water flooding, not storm surge flooding, which tends to generally affect the coast rather than rivers. Thank you.
Right. I'm not sure how we can check. I suppose we could. Sorry. Yeah.
No.
James.
Let me-
Mike.
So I mean, we can reference that in this. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Sean. Do you remember? Because it's your point on that.
Yes.
Is that-
I was really referring to surface water flooding rather
Okay.
than storm water from rivers. Now, there's two types: fluvial and what is called pluvial. Fluvial from rivers and seas, and then the other form, which is pluvial, which is surface water and groundwater flooding. It can form both. That's from storm water, basically heavy rain, rather than overflowing rivers. So yeah, it could refer to surface water flooding. It's the same. Yeah.
So, do we have some wording? And I'll put that to the vote, I think, or should we just include?
To update that, and it will get caught. It will get captured in. It will get captured in these minutes to
Okay.
correct the previous minutes. So, yeah,
So we'll be agreeing to them that minute as amended. Is that okay? Thank you for pointing it out. Any other comments? Yes, sorry, Councillor McDonnell.
It was just really for clarification. I wasn't here for one of the meetings, but I was for the other. So does that mean I can vote yes to accept, or?
My understanding is we can vote on meetings when we weren't here anyway, although I tend not to because it feels a bit strange. So,
generally abstain.
Yeah. But if you were here at one and not the other, or-
Then we need to separate the vote out. So it's up to you if you want to. If you're. Yeah. So you would normally abstain if you were if you weren't present at one of the meetings, as we're taking both together, unless the chair wishes to separate them, take separate votes on them. Otherwise, yeah, you will just generally abstain.
I'm going to make sure Councillor McDonnell's conscience is clear, and we'll do it as 2 votes. I think it's fair. I've never I mean, I've been told before you can do it if you're not here, but it clearly doesn't feel right to, because how can you prove it if you weren't here? So we'll take 2 votes if committee are happy with that. So if we can move to a vote, so if we could vote on the first set of minutes, which is the 17th of, Councillor, who seconded? Who was the seconder? Councillor Prescott. Were you happy to second for both sets of minutes? Thank you. So we'll vote first on the first, the minutes of the 17th of July, and we're voting to approve those minutes.
That motion's carried.
Thank you. And we'll move to a vote on the minutes of the second meeting on the 24th of July.
That motion's carried.
Thank you. Gosh, we are busy, aren't we? All these meetings. Item 3, notification of other businesses. There is none. Item 4, chair's announcements. Recording. Excuse me. In accordance with council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available both on the council's YouTube channel as well as on the council's ModGov site alongside the documents from this meeting. Declaration of interest. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the chair's announcement on the agenda. To clarify matters for the registered speakers, thank you to members of the public for joining us this evening. To confirm, you'll have between 3 and 5 minutes, as advised by the committee services team, to make your verbal presentation to the committee. All speakers will receive a warning when you have 1 minute remaining at the end of your when you have 1 minute remaining and at the end of your allotted time, you'll be advised that the time allowed has ended. Following the conclusion of your time, members will be invited to ask points of clarification to you. During the meeting, members of the committee will be invited to ask questions or seek points of clarification of the planning officer or public speakers. Please note this section is only for members of the committee to ask questions, and unfortunately, members of the public cannot speak at this time. Debate procedure. In order to move to a debate on an item, we will require a proposer and seconder for a motion at the appropriate time in the meeting. This should take into account the information in the officer's report and will follow the officer's presentation and any public presentations, including member advocates, as well as any questions of the officer and points of clarification to the public presenters. As a reminder for members, should you wish to propose a motion contrary to the recommendations included in the officer's report, you'll be required to provide clear and evidence reasons for this proposal. Section 4.8.23a. For the purposes of clarification, in order to vote on an agenda item at this meeting, a member must be present for the entirety of the debate and consideration for that item. If a member leaves the room at any point of the item, they will not be able to vote. Meeting cut-off. As outlined under 4.8.24g of the Council's Constitution, if the meeting proceeds to 10:30 p.m, the item being considered at that time will be the final item considered at tonight's meeting. The remaining business will be deferred to the next meeting on Thursday, the 4th of September. Change of agenda order. For clarity purposes, there'll be a change to the order of the agenda, moving agenda item 8, enforcement part 1, to after agenda item 10, enforcement part 2. Public participation. I've got 4 speakers listed. For item 6, I have Mr. Mike Osborne. Welcome. And for item 7, I have Mr. Lyndon Gill, Mr. Stuart Morse, and Mr. George Leaf. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the first substantive item. Item 6, application 24-02907 RM, land north of Pound Farm, London Road, St Hippolytes, Hertfordshire. Paul Chaston to present. Paul.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. I don't have any updates for you, so I'll just get straight into the application. So this is an application for reserve matters for the erection of 48 dwellings and associated works. To provide a bit of background, it follows on from a hybrid permission which was granted for a residential development for 84 dwellings, together with associated access from London Road, including the provision of a roundabout, associated parking, landscaping, open space, and ancillary works. That hybrid permission granted full planning permission for phase 1 of the development, which was for the erection of 36 dwellings. It also granted outline planning permission for phases 2 and 3 of the development for 48 dwellings, with all matters reserved except for access on the remaining part of the site. The application before you today is the reserve matters for phases 2 and 3 in relation to the layout, scale, landscaping and appearance. Can we move to the slides? And next slide. Thank you. Yep. So this is the site location plan showing the red line boundary of the site. Next slide, please. This is the phasing plan, which is taken from the design and access statement, and it shows phases 2 and 3 of the development in the blue, which is the subject of this application. Phase 1 of the development is the colour shown in the light shaded brown colour. Next slide, please. So moving on to some photos of the site. This view's taken adjacent to the northwest corner of the site and looks down Bedford Road in a southerly direction. Next slide, please. So this is taken on the western boundary of the site and it looks across the site towards the northeast corner. Next slide. And this is taken from the same spot, looking across the site towards the southeast corner. Next slide, please. This is taken adjacent to the southwest corner of the site and is looking north along Bedford Road back towards Hitchin. Next slide, please. This is taken from the public footpath to the north of the site. The application site is on the right beyond the hedgerow. Next slide. This is taken further down the footpath and beyond the hedgerow. There you can see the eastern portion of the site. Next slide, please. This is the coloured site layout master plan, which shows all of the proposed 48 dwellings associated with phases 2 and 3, private garden areas, internal road layout and green spaces. And again, you can see the area of the site, which is phase 1, which is the greyed out area towards the bottom. Next slide, please. This is another version of the site layout plan. Next slide, please. The next few slides show the floor plans and elevations for all of the different dwelling types that are proposed. This one is for plots 62 and 63, which are both 2-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are for plots 25 and 46, which are again both 2-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are for plots 47 and 48, which are also both 2-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are the plans for plot 49, which is a 4-bed dwelling. Next slide, please. These are for plots 50, 51, 69 and 70, which are 4-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are for plots 23, 24, 67 and 84, which are all 5-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are plans for plots 40, 71, 72, 75 and 78, which are 5-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are for plots 39, 65, 66, 67, and these are all 3-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are the plans for plots 64 and 82, which are 4-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. So this is the affordable housing plan and shows the location of the different types of affordable housing units throughout the whole of the site, including what's already been approved on phase 1. So the 12 affordable units associated with phases 2 and 3 are the ones shown on the right-hand side of the plan within the red line. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, Councillor Allen.
That we know what those properties are.
Do you want? I don't have the plan open right now, but would you? Yeah, I'll find it. Do
you want to be more specific, Councillor Allen?
Slide.
Yeah.
Shows the colours and the positions of where things are. We don't know what the mix of those is. We don't know whether blue is the flats or blue is the 3-bed or 2-bed. Could we know what the key is on the map, please?
Yeah. I'm hoping Paul's eyesight's better than mine because I couldn't read that if it was right in front of me. But
yeah, so the blue one is affordable rent dwelling. The green is shared ownership dwelling, and the yellowy brown is social rent dwelling. Okay, yeah. Next slide, thank you. So these next few slides show the plans for the affordable dwellings. These are for plots 52 to 55, which are all 3-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. These are the plans for plots 59 and 60, which are 2-bed dwellings, and plot 61, which is a 4-bed M43 wheelchair accessible dwelling. Next slide, please. And these are the plans for plots 56 to 58, which are 2-bed dwellings. Next slide, please. So this drawing is an extract from the design and access statement and shows the proposed scale of the dwellings. Most of the dwellings would be 2 stories in height. I don't know if you can see the orange dots on the map there, but they're the 2-story ones. And there's also a number of 2.5-story dwellings around, mainly around the central green square, and these are shown with the dark brown dot. Next slide, please. So this is the coloured street scenes plan. These are, so you can see where the sections are taken from the quay in the bottom right corner. I don't know if it's large enough for you. The top section drawing is section A, which is shown in the red on the quay, and that's taken along the main spine road and the land slopes from west to east. The middle section drawing is also taken on the spine road, but on the opposite side. That's the one that's denoted by the light blue on the quay. And the bottom one is the dark blue marking on the quay plan, which is the internal north to south road. Next slide, please. So these plans show the floor plans and elevations for the plots that will have garages. Also shows the bin and cycle storage, which every dwelling is proposed to have on plots. Next slide, please. So this is the materials plan. It shows the respective materials for each dwelling. As can be seen on the quay, they would consist of either red multi-stock facing brick, terracotta stock facing brick, cream colour render, dark coloured weatherboarding, cladding, and red and grey coloured roof tiles. And this is very much in line with the materials details that have been approved in respect of phase 1. Next slide, please. This is the hard landscaping plan. So it shows all the different surfaces proposed for the internal roads, visitor parking spaces, pavements, driveways, and garden paths. Next slide, please. And this is the planting plan and shows all the locations throughout the site where there's tree planting, shrub planting, and hedging proposed along the site boundaries, together with details for planting on street verges and the green spaces. So in summary, this is a reserved matters application for phases 2 and 3 of this site, which is for a total of 48 dwellings, including 12 affordable dwellings on a site that is allocated for housing within the local plan. Overall, the proposal would accord with the NPPF and the local plan when taken as a whole. Where there are outstanding matters, these have already been addressed either by condition on the original hybrid permission or through recommended conditions on this reserved matters application. Happy to answer any further questions for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Are there any points of clarification from members? Councillor Prescott.
On that previous slide, can you tell me what line 32 says?
Sorry?
On the previous slide. I'm afraid I didn't bring my binoculars with me tonight. I suppose my question is there any reason, and this is a general question, your report is well prepared, it contains an enormous amount of detail. Are we really expected to take it all in on an evening like tonight? It's just impossible to take it all in. And I'm just wondering if there's any way that amount of detail could be provided in advance. Is there anything confidential that we shouldn't see in advance? I mean, it's a general inquiry because we get it every time. There's a lot of detail there, and it's a lot to take in.
I'm sorry, I'm going to take Councillor Bryant's question because I think she was on the same point.
Could I be helpful and answer the question? That what I've got in front of me open is the planning portal's information about this application. It's actually got each of these documents And I've been looking at, because like you, I cannot see those. So I've been scrolling through them.
Did you wish to come back any further on that, Paul? Or
I mean, just as a general comment, I think you're referring probably to the landscaping plans. Yeah, of course, I understand. Obviously, I felt it's important to include that, given that landscaping is one of the matters being looked at as part of this application. But yeah, I appreciate where you're coming from.
thank you. I mean, I would add as well. I couldn't read a lot of that. I mean, if it's anyway, I mean, this stuff is really, really important. It was a very, very good report. But if planning officers perhaps consider using a larger font, I think some of us might appreciate it. Thank you. I have Councillor Allen next. Daniel.
I'm still getting over the previous comments, Chair. Right. Hard surfacing in an area where the roads won't be adopted. Are we confident the hard surfacing can cope with regular visits of 26-ton vehicles?
Well, the highways have not made any such comments about those details, objecting to any of those details provided on the hard landscaping plan.
Whilst the roads won't be adopted, they are built to adoptable standard. So basically, the council won't take the county council, that is, won't take ownership of those roads, but they do require that the roads are built to adoptable standard. That's the road. That's the highways. The private drives, which some of the houses will be served off, they're not roads as such. They're private drives, but the roads themselves, the highways over which people will travel, they would be built to adoptable standard.
Thank you. Is that your question answered, Councillor Allen? Thank you. Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Just as clarification, Paul, I've been reading the comments on the planning portal, which are all about boundaries, road safety and the road junction with Mill Lane and London Road. Are they part of this item?
The boundary details, yes, but again, this phase of the development is restricted to the area in the mid and rear part of the site, as shown on the phasing plan. So some of the comments are relevant in terms of the concerns around boundaries. The comments on highways would have already been addressed as part of the phase 1 hybrid permission.
Councillor May.
Thank you. In the section on energy and sustainability, you talk about the fact that all of the dwellings would have air source heat pump systems installed. Is there also PV panels on any of the properties?
So my understanding is that the applicant decided not to go down this road with this approach. They wanted to focus on building performance and providing all of the buildings with better insulation. They may want to add some further detail to that when they get the opportunity to.
To answer your question, Councillor May, and I'm conscious that the applicant's agent is here and I don't have a chance to ask questions as well. So I have no other questions showing. So could I ask the applicant's agent, Mr. Mike Osborne? Mike, you have 5 minutes and I'll let you know when you have a minute left. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I will be hopefully a lot more succinct than 5 minutes, but thank you for the opportunity to speak. Yes, I'm a planning consultant with Carter Jonas. I'm here to speak on behalf of Olivia Holmes, the applicant. We would first like to thank officers for the constructive dialogue we've had coming to this point in the application. As Paul helpfully described, the application is a reserved matters submission, building very much on the principles that were established in the hybrid consent. And phase 1, as I don't know whether any of you know the site and the area, but is under construction at the minute. The scheme obviously sees the completion of the outline permission with this design, and we feel features high quality landscaping in accordance with the principles that were established in the outline application. As Paul's described already, the scheme includes the same approach and builds on it in terms of the access, the layout, the house types, the spatial distribution of affordable housing to ensure that consistency and quality is carried all the way through the scheme. Olivia Homes, the developer, very much place quality at the heart of what they do, and they think they've taken that through in terms of design, detailing the materials of the homes. And I think our view is it's reflected in both the recommendation of the officers and the statutory consultees who supported the scheme, as summarised in Paul's report. There's really not lots else to add. I'm sure you may have questions of me, so we'll skip on to that bit in a second. But I think all it's really for me to say is that we welcome the officer's recommendation, and hopefully you're supporting the application. Olivia are very keen to crack on and deliver the houses that the community desperately needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well inside time. Do we have any points of clarification for the applicant's agent? Councillor Mantle.
What arrangements are you proposing for the maintenance of the landscaping and the common areas?
My understanding is that Olivia will be putting those into a management company.
So is that an existing management company or a new one?
It will be a new management company established for the particular development. So it will be transferred to the residents of the scheme for them to run and maintain that once it's established. But obviously Olivia would set it up and incur the cost of that until residents were on site and ready to take it over.
Thank you. Councillor May.
Thank you. I'm going back to my question to Paul earlier. Would you like to comment on whether you've considered the installation of PV panels on the houses as well as the heat pumps?
Yep. Olivia's approach is very much a fabric first approach to energy performance and building performance. So photovoltaics aren't a core part of the scheme. Obviously, if purchasers wanted photovoltaics, then they would be more than happy to consider that, but it's not something they're relying on in terms of building performance.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Yes, I just wanted to raise the subject of the road safety. And while I realise you're not highways, on the plans there is a really pretty roundabout on here. There's a lot of questions about the timing of that. Do you know if that's going to be done by highways prior to the completion of this or not?
The installation of the roundabout, that's the primary access into the site. That's under construction at the minute. No, sorry, it's not under construction at the minute, but it is one of the first things that has to happen before anybody can live on the site. The phase one scheme very much has a condition in terms of delivery of roads before occupation, and Paul's recommended conditions to the same effect for phases 2 and 3.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bryant, you're scrabbling for your button.
Thank you. Could I ask about a query made by one of the residents from the Pound London Road about the southern boundary? I don't know the site well enough to know if it actually is part of this phase or not. Whether you can confirm that the present hedge, evergreen hedge, etc., will be replaced to have further to be a substantial boundary in that area. I don't know if you know it well enough to be able to transfer it.
We have had dialogue with the neighbour in terms of the adjoining, the existing boundary to the south, or is it? Yes, it is south, isn't it? And we made adjustments to the scheme to reflect their comments during the application.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. And may I invite the officer to respond to any of the issues raised? Cool.
Got nothing further to add. Thanks.
Thank you. So, the officers, as we move into debate, the officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with the material planning reasons, I shall be proposing even that we grant permission, unless anyone has an alternative proposal. Right. Therefore, I propose that we grant permission subject to the reasons and conditions set out in the report. And that would include, yeah. May I have a seconder for that? What was the race?
Second.
Thank you. In which case, we move into debate on this item. Councillor Mantle.
Given the permission already granted, it would be perverse not to approve this application.
Succinct as ever, Councillor Mantle. Councillor Allen, you look like you're...
I was just going to say it follows everything that we need it to. I can see no legal reason not to, and I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Any further comments? No? Then we will move to a vote. Could I see all those in favour of the motion to approve the application?
That motion's carried.
Thank you. Okay. If anyone wishes to leave at this point, I will pause accordingly. For the record, both Councillor Bryant and Councillor Bartos tried to vote, but the technology failed them. Or their fingers, one or the other. Thank you for the clarification. Item 7, application 25-01196 FP, Starwood House, Avenue 1, Letchworth Garden City. Councillor Mantle, I believe you need to declare an interest.
Trustee of the Heritage Foundation, who are the landowners, I have a declarable interest in this item and will not take any part in the debate and will leave the room.
Thank you for your candour, Councillor Mantle. I shall allow you to leave. Alex Howard to present. Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I have two updates for you this evening. The first is that in my recommendation, I have not included the mandatory biodiversity net gain condition as required by the Council's ecologist, which is a standard pre-commencement condition, so I propose this be added to the recommendation. The second is in relation to the Environment Agency and condition 13 of the recommendation. At section 3.7 of my report, the date on which further comments from the Environment Agency was received was the 15th and 18th of August, where 6 conditions have been recommended and agreed by the applicant. On one of the conditions from the Environment Agency, which is condition 13 in the reports pack, it is recommended with amended wording to enable the demolition of the buildings to slab level and site clearance works to take place, given the recent grant of prior approval to demolish the existing buildings on the site. This has been incorporated on all other relevant and appropriate conditions in the recommendation. I therefore propose that condition 13 be amended as follows. The development hereby permitted shall not commence, save for demolition to slab level and site clearance works, until a monitoring and maintenance plan in respect of contamination, including a timetable of monitoring and submission of reports to the local planning authority, has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Reports are specified in the approved plan, including details of any necessary contingency action arising from the monitoring, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. So that's it in terms of updates. So if we could please go to the presentation. There we go. Thank you. So the application site is Starwood House, which comprises 2 adjoining industrial units of 1 and 2 stories in height, an ancillary office space on the western side, and a large area of hard standing car parking on the east of the site. The site is served via an existing vehicular and pedestrian access onto Avenue 1 in the northwestern corner and is bounded by mature trees on all sides. The topography of the site reduces in a south to north direction. The site is an employment use, and much of the surrounding context is also under employment uses. The site is bordered by Avenue 1 to the west, 2nd Avenue to the south, and 3rd Avenue to the east, with Sainsbury's located beyond. The site is within the Letchworth employment area. The site also falls within flood zone 1, with some areas of the site being susceptible to low and medium risk surface water flooding. Next slide, please. So this is a photo from Avenue 1 looking towards the existing main access of the site. You can kind of make out the existing building in the middle and the dense tree lines on Avenue 1. Next slide, please. This is just another view from Avenue 1 looking north towards that existing access. Next slide, please. And again, just another view straight on from that access on Avenue 1. This is the western boundary of the site on Avenue 1, a little bit further up. Again, you can see the existing dense tree line there. And again, just another view of that western boundary, and you can see the building sort of in the right background there, with the red roof on it. And again, just another view further up Avenue 1. This is the southwestern corner of the site between Avenue 1 and 2nd Avenue. And just another sort of view of that same corner, a little bit set back to show that junction. This is another view a bit further along 2nd Avenue of that southern boundary. Again, you can see the dense tree lines. And this is a view looking west on 2nd Avenue with the site on the right side there. And this gives you a kind of indication of the topographical changes. And a view from the same position, but looking sort of directly into the site, where you can see the existing building in the background and the hard standing on the right side there, and the sort of existing foliage in the foreground. And again, just another view looking on 2nd Avenue, again showing the topographical changes. This is a view looking north on 3rd Avenue. The site's on your left there, and Sainsbury's and the car park there is on your right. This is from the northern part of 3rd Avenue, sort of looking back towards the site. And this is just a close-up of that previous image. Again, the sort of the top corner, as it were, of the site in question. So this is an aerial view of the site just from Google Maps. It's just to give you kind of some context in terms of prevailing industrial character and the siting of buildings in this employment area. This is just the location plan for the site. And this is the existing site plan showing the extent of existing buildings, parking area, and the existing access onto Avenue 1. These are the existing elevations for the buildings on the site. And that's the existing ground floor plan, the existing first floor plan, and the existing roof plan. So this is the proposed site plan. The scheme would provide 3 industrial units across 2 buildings, with units 1 and 2 located on the western side of the site, and Unit 3 in the northeastern side of the site. Primary access off Avenue 1 leading to a parking service area within the site. There's new pedestrian access proposed in the northeast corner with retained and enhanced landscaping throughout. These are the proposed front and side elevations for units 1 and 2, which is the left building on that previous plan. These are the proposed rear and side elevations for units 1 and 2. This is a typical section drawing for unit 1 and a typical section drawing for unit 2. This is the proposed ground floor plan for units 1 and 2. And this is the proposed roof plan for units 1 and 2. This shows the proposed front and side elevations for unit 3, which is the building on the right side on that site plan. These are the proposed rear and side elevations for unit 3. The proposed ground floor plan for unit 3. The proposed roof plan for unit 3, and a typical section plan for unit 3. So these are some proposed site section plans, essentially showing street scene elevations of the proposed development from Avenue 1 at the top there and 2nd Avenue on the bottom one there. Sort of helps you to understand, I think, the topographical context and relationship with neighbouring buildings. This is the existing tree constraints plan. So you can see across all boundaries, there's quite a dense tree line. And this is the proposed landscaping plan, which has been informed by the former tree constraints plan. This is just a plan showing the typical security fence details for the site. Now, the following slides are a series of extracts from a design document provided by the applicant to show the proposal in sort of visual 3D form. This plan is a building line visual showing the proposal in context with the immediate neighbouring buildings and their respective heights. You can't really make out the small text, unfortunately, but it just kind of shows what the heights are of these neighbouring buildings. So apologies for you not being able to see that too clearly. Or at all, yeah, sorry. This is a 3D visual of the proposal. So unit 1 at the top there. So this is looking up Avenue 1 towards the access with unit 1 in the background. And again, the bottom one is unit 2, sort of where on the corner with Avenue 1 and 2nd Avenue. And these are just some elevations you've already seen and some further 3D visuals. And on the left there, you've kind of got some examples of materiality on other similar schemes of a similar kind of nature and scale to this one. And this is just a blown up image of that previous one that you saw, again, showing the proposal from Avenue 1 looking towards the access with Unit 1 in the background. This is a visual of Unit 3, so from 3rd Avenue looking back towards the site. In the foreground there, you can see the proposed pedestrian access and amenity area, which is in the northeast corner of the site. And these are just some further visuals again of the site with an internal visual of Unit 3 at the top there and an aerial view of the site looking southwards on that bottom one there. Again, just some further aerial visuals of the site looking northwest towards Unit 3 at the top and looking south towards Units 1 and 2 at the bottom. Now, these images show some other examples of similar developments of a similar commercial nature and scale across the country and in the southeast. Some examples are relatively close by, just to kind of show how they look in context and the kind of finish that can be expected on schemes such as this. And finally, this is a wider aerial image of the proposal, just kind of again showing how the proposal would be in relation to the wider employment area in Letchworth. It's that sort of middle left pair of buildings with a kind of blue roof on them, a little bit of blue and surrounded by a red line. Again, you can't really see it, so apologies. But again, just to kind of show you the prevailing industrial context of this employment area. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any points of clarification from members? Councillor McDonnell.
Yes, you showed the image of the different heights, and obviously we couldn't see them. But can you just tell us if, in relation to the buildings, whether this is the tallest or whether there's others that are taller?
Let me just get that up now. I do have it open. So if we could maybe get that slide back up and I can kind of point and describe, if that's okay, just if that would be helpful. Yes, that's the one. So, so obviously with the bottom pink purple building is obviously the one on Avenue 1 there. So to the right of that, that says that the buildings are 10 to 12 meters in height. The one behind, so the left side of Unit 1 is 8 to 10 meters in height for the office and 12 meters towards the rear. And opposite the site, you've got 12 meters in height, 8 to 10 meters in height, 8 to 10 meters again. In the bottom right there, it's more like 3 to 6 for that building, and then it goes on to 6 to 8 meters. So there's a sort of a fair variation of building heights, sort of around there for sure.
Happy with that, Caroline? Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Under 4.3.33, the Highway Authority have provided formal responses to this application. It says here at the time of writing the report, amended plans have not been submitted as per the request of the Highway Authority. Can you give me any update on that? And I do have further questions on highways.
Oh yeah. So I had a feeling this would come up. So the recommendation with you this evening is a resolution to grant subject to the Highway Authority having no objections, subject to conditions, because there is a separate matter that we're working into the Section 106, where the applicant is obligated to apply for a TRO on the area of Avenue 1 opposite the junction. It's to do with the tracking of HGV vehicles, and Highways have accelerated their local cycling and walking infrastructure plan on Avenue 1. So it's effectively trying to get a scheme that works for the applicant to make it viable, and a scheme that works for Highways so they can implement their LC whip.
Thank you. 106 parking spaces seems small, but obviously is suitable for this type of development. This is an area which partly falls by me in my area, if not just against the edge of it as a councillor. There is non-stop problems with parking along Avenue 1, 2nd Avenue and 3rd. How are there, or is there any way of enforcing double yellow lines along those roads that are going to be directly affected with antisocial parking, which will be exacerbated by this development?
So the process of obviously applying for a TRO and double yellow lines is separate to planning. Obviously, because it is a material consideration in this respect, we have factored it into the 106, but I think it would be unreasonable to expect the applicant to apply for a TRO across, for example, the whole of Avenue 1. It's just in this case, in respect of that necessary to make the access suitable for future occupiers who would be utilising HGVs. So I don't think it would be reasonable under this application. Sean, I don't know if you...
Just before I bring Sean in, can you just, I know it's in here somewhere, but can you remind us what TRO is?
Traffic regulation order.
Thank you. Sean.
Thank you, Chair. A TRO is a traffic regulation order, as just said, and in order to put down new yellow lines along a road, you need a traffic regulation order that basically restricts parking along that stretch. The traffic regulation order is undertaken by the County Council as owners of that highway. And in this instance, the Highway Authority are looking for variations to the existing rather wide access to this site in order to reduce its width and therefore make it more user-friendly for people walking along Avenue 1 and cycling along Avenue 1. And that means narrowing it down, which does mean that the turning of large HGVs will go further across the road, and there's vehicles parked along that stretch of Avenue 1 opposite the junction. Albeit it's not legal to park opposite a junction, which many people don't realise. So this traffic regulation order will effectively enforce what is currently not legal in terms of parking across that junction to that access road. So the Section 106 agreement will make provision for a traffic regulation order that will limit parking along a stretch of road opposite the proposed junction to the site, so that large HGVs can turn without actually hitting those parked cars, basically. So that's the plan. Now, we don't have control over the traffic regulation order. The County Council are confident that the traffic regulation order will go ahead. So in order to make provision for the unlikely scenario of the traffic regulation order not going ahead, they will look at alternatives, options that doesn't include a traffic regulation order, which will require a slight tweak to the design of the access to the site. And the recommendation is that that matter be delegated to myself to consider in the unlikely event that the traffic regulation order wouldn't go ahead. It's really a technical matter, really, in terms of what the optimum design would be in the alternative to the preferred option of the Highway Authority, which is to have a narrower access to the site, but with traffic regulation order that prevents parking across the junction from the site, so that the HGVs don't crash into the side or take out the mirrors of the cars parked along Avenue 1.
Wish to come back, Catherine.
Sorry to keep taking so much time on this, but this is literally one of the biggest sources of complaint I have from residents is to do with this access point. I've been looking through on the planning portal at the designs. Do we have a design of how this new TRL access will be?
We have a indicative drawing on a draft highway officer's response. It's kind of crudely drawn, but it kind of effectively shows what they would like to achieve. We have had meetings with the applicant's representatives to look at what options, if the TRO is unsuccessful, what options could work. And we have had some positive feedback that one of them might have some legs to look at following this. Again, in the event that the TRO doesn't pass, but I didn't include it in my presentation because it was obviously an indicative kind of drawing, basically. It's not like a proper one.
Final one, I promise. With the redesigned TRO, will it require HGVs to swing onto the opposite side of the road to get into a narrowed entrance?
So my understanding is that the problem with the access is leaving the site and turning left, so going south on Avenue 1. So with a narrow junction, it may well be possible that with the double yellow lines there, the HGV may have to possibly swing round. But again, this is what highways are after. You know, they're the ones pressing this for the LC whip to try and get a scheme that works for that requirement and obviously the applicants. So
thank you, Alex. Do we have any further points of clarification from the officer? Nope. Okay. So next I have the applicant's agent and representatives, Mr. Lyndon Gill, Mr. Stuart Morse and Mr. George Leaf. Gentlemen, you've got 5 minutes between you, which I think we're going to take in one chunk, and I'll let you know when you've got a minute left.
Thank you, Chair. My colleagues here, Stuart Morse, in particular from KMC Transport, can potentially provide some further responses because Stuart's in the detail with regard to the traffic regulation order. So we can come on to that separate if you've got some queries afterwards. But just to kick off, my name is Lyndon Gill. I'm a planning director advising the applicant. I'm not intending to speak for long this evening. I think you'll probably be pleased with, as we have worked very closely with your officers, Alex and Sam, pursuant to a planning performance agreement, after initially seeking pre-application advice on the site in January. The officer report and presentation from Alex tonight is the positive result, which my client fully supports. Principally, we are here this evening to assist in answering any queries members may have, and I am accompanied by the client and experts in the field of drainage and highways. I intend to use the majority of the allotted 5 minutes for that purpose if necessary. But to summarise, Wrenbridge is a company based in Shelford, just on the edge of Cambridge. They have successfully delivered many similar schemes across Hertfordshire and the east of England, including 2 active projects in Stevenage, Hemel Hempstead, Bedford, Cambridge and many others. With their funding partner, their aspiration is to bring this site, which has been vacant and underutilised for some time, back into beneficial economic use for which it is zoned, with flexible commercial space that can be occupied by a wide range of tenants. Targeting EPC A+ and BREEAM Outstanding, the buildings will set a new benchmark for this industrial estate in terms of sustainability, exceeding local plan standards. The design is informed by local market expertise and modern tenant requirements, which maximise the prospects of successfully letting the units, which, based on HCA employment densities, could deliver between 120 and 315 new jobs, subject to the uses they were brought forward for. Wrenbridge build out their schemes, as seen in the previously cited examples and in the design document provided to officers. The intention is to move forward immediately. Working with the district solicitor, the Section 106 agreement is largely being drafted. An application for a traffic regulation order is readied, and my client is in the process of appointing a contractor to start works before the end of the year. The application has received no objections from the local community, and I trust that you can support your officer's recommendation. But should you have any queries, we are here and happy to help answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was concise. Are there any points of clarification from members? Councillor Allen.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
As you probably already have heard, parking is something that I'm a little bit nervous about. I think the design aspect is brilliant. It's exactly what's needed in Letchworth. Up to 350 new jobs and 106 parking spaces, of which how many of those parking spaces would be visitor parking spaces as opposed to people working on the site?
I mean, first on the employment densities, that is arranged because we're seeking a flexible use across all of the buildings, which could range from being a B8 through to a light industrial or an industrial. The likelihood is that they wouldn't all come forward for industrial, which is where the higher employment density would be, but there is flexibility built within the scheme to enable a change that would potentially reduce the size of the yard and allow further space for car parking in the event that the buildings were to all come forward for industrial. But I will let Stuart come in and provide any further details on that if you wish to.
I think just the outstanding piece on that Lyndon's clarified there is just a point on visitor spaces, and slightly different to residential, where obviously there's a stipulation around pure visitors. It's really down to the occupier to manage that. So if their business requires a lot of visitors, they would allocate more for visitors. If they really don't have any visitors, what's the point, sort of thing. So it's really a management piece based on the occupier.
You also said you'd be willing to comment more on the access point and the issue we've got ahead of the TRO. Would you be willing to comment on that, please? I know it's not a direct question, but I do appreciate it.
That's fine. I mean, it's actually been reasonably well explained by colleagues anyway. But it obviously came fairly late in the day from the higher authority in terms of them asking us to look at something a little bit different. We've always advocated a change to the junction. They wanted us to go one step beyond and make it even narrower, basically. I think your point around would a lorry HGV, sorry, need to swing out to come into the site, that absolutely would not be the case. You would not do that. The issue is around HGVs exiting and turning left, and obviously in this point, we would expect most HGVs to go towards that direction, towards the A1. And so with a narrower junction means going over the other side of the carriageway and crossing that centre line. That's why the applicant as well would like to see parking restrictions there, so that you've got that certainty that a HGV can get out safely. No vehicles are going to get damaged. Obviously, you shouldn't park there, but people are now. I've lived in Letchworth for 20 years. I see it all the time, so I know exactly the issues that you've mentioned. So absolutely, we want to find the solution. We're willing to do it, willing to put the TRO in. It's just that it's a separate process. We just need to go through the motions, go through it, deliver what everybody wants to see. It obviously, in the very, very unlikely event that the TRO fails for whatever reason, there is a fallback.
Thank you. Do we have any further points of clarification? No? Then I'd like to invite the officer to respond to any issues raised. Alex.
Nothing further, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move towards debate. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with the material planning reasons, I shall be proposing that we grant permission. This is a bit where I pause to see if you come up with anything different. I need to have a pausing face, really, don't I? Okay, therefore, I propose that we grant permission subject to the following. A, the completion of a suitable legal agreement in line with the heads of terms. B, a response of no objection and any relevant conditions from the local lead flood authority to be delegated to the development and conservation manager prior to any decision. C, a response of no objection and any relevant conditions from the Hertfordshire Highways Authority to be delegated to the development and conservation manager prior to any decision. D, an agreement to any extension of time to the statutory determination date to allow for A, B, and C to occur. Do we have any? I think we have further conditions as well, Alex.
And just those further conditions I mentioned in my updates, Chair, about the B&G and the amended wording to condition 13, please. Thank you.
Do we have those captured? We do. So that's my proposal. Do we have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Right, we're in debate. Does anyone wish to question? Councillor Bartos.
Thank you. And thank you for this application. I think that it's actually really thoughtful around the issues that have been raised and the use case as well. I particularly want to note that I commend the sustainability standards, which I think are going to be driving up the standards for other applications in that area in the future. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Do we have any further points of clarification from the members? No? Okay, so we'll move to my recommendation is to approve, subject to the 4 conditions I raise out and the 2 that Alex added. So subject to all those conditions, can I see all those in favour of approving the application?
That motion's carried.
Thank you very much.
Shall I go and get Councillor Mack?
While we exclude the press and public, I'm going to call a very brief comfort break because I want one. So 2 minutes, please. And thank you for our visitors. Thank you very much for your time. Okay. It's thinned out a little bit in here, but those of us who are left. Item 9, exclusion of press and public. To consider passing the following resolution that under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 7 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the said Act as amended. I'm going to test you on that later. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Allen.
Happy to propose, Chair.
And do I have a seconder? Councillor Fernandez. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we are voting to exclude the press and public. Seconded.
That motion's carried.
Thank you. We can now wait while the virtual public gallery is cleared. Yeah. It's like a virtual dungeon, Martin. Okay. Item 8, Planning Enforcement Quarterly Report, Part 1. As a reminder to members, we have now moved back into public session. Therefore, please ensure that any questions only relate to the information provided in the Part 1 documents. Christella Menson to present.
Thank you, Chair. The update on this is that members are kindly asked to note this report. There are no further updates. Unless there are any questions, I'm happy to take those. Thank you.
Any questions in Part 1? No? Right, the report is for noting. Duly noted. Item 11, Appeals. Sean Greaves to present.
Thank you, Chair. There's, as usual, 2 tables on the report. The first table relates to the applications that have been submitted, and there are about 7 appeals that have been submitted, and they're listed there. There's about 7 of them. They're all either the Householder Appeal Service, which is written representations, or general written representations. No hearings or public inquiries are proposed with relation to those appeals. And unless members have any questions about any of the appeals lodged, I'll move on to the appeal decision, which was for the solar farm at Wandon End. You can see there that the actual appeal decision is there for you to read. It's fairly long, and it does deal with some fairly complicated issues. And one of the main complicated issues is this concept of grey belt, which was introduced in the revisions to the National Planning Policy Framework back in December. We are, and other councils are getting appeal decisions that firm up what grey belt really means, and the interpretation of inspectors with regards to what grey belt is. Many people envisaged grey belt just relating to previous development land, but it doesn't just relate to previous development land. It can relate to any land within the green belt that meets certain, that doesn't contribute to certain green belt purposes, and those are purpose A, B, and D, and those purposes relate to the matters that are set out in the NPPF, this what we have been using up to now has been our Greenbelt review of 2016 and 2018, which looks at lots of parcels within the Greenbelt and what contribution those parcels make to Greenbelt purposes, such as preventing the coalescence of towns with each other and that kind of thing. But this appeal decision basically says that because those reviews were undertaken for the local plan and didn't envisage the grey belt, that the inspector in this instance gave those reviews limited weight. So what's going to happen then? I may well be recording an online training for members that tries to set out what my understanding is of the grey belt and how it would apply in North Hertfordshire, because from this appeal decision, a large portion of our green belt could be classified as grey belt. And that's obviously something for us to consider moving forward. The other thing to point out is that we have started and are going through a green belt review, and as part of local plan review, and as part of that review, we will be looking at the green belt and identifying those areas of the green belt which we consider to be grey belt, and that will assist very much in development management decisions, because the review will be looking at what is grey belt and what is not grey belt. So that's something that we can look forward to, I think, in assisting us in dealing with this concept of grey belt moving forward. Unless you've got any questions, I can see Councillor Alan Maywell.
Councillor Allen.
Less a question, more a comment, Sean. I'd like to thank all the officers of North Herts for the hard work they've put in on this, particularly around the planning and legal department. You really have gone and done a lot of work on it, and we do massively appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm happy to second that and reserve my right to speak. Councillor May.
Thank you. I've got a follow-up question to that, in that we heard an application fairly recently that involved the grey belt definition, and the conversation I had afterwards tends to suggest that the purpose for what the land is going to be put towards makes a difference as to whether the definition of land is grey belt or not. Is that's correct?
Up to a point, I think. First of all, you have to determine whether land is grey belt, and if you consider it to be grey belt, then a particular paragraph of the MPPF comes into force, and that's paragraph 155. And you may well want to look at that paragraph, because there are 3 criteria to that paragraph. The first criterion is that it should be grey belt. And the site not make a significant contribution to other purposes of the green belt other than those that you consider when identifying whether a site utilises grey belt. The second consideration is whether there's a need for the proposed development. So that's where the nature of the development comes into play. So this paragraph 155 is determining whether something is inappropriate or appropriate within the green belt. So you consider whether something is grey belt, but it still has to pass these criteria in paragraph 155. So the second criterion is what I've just said in terms of that matter. And the final criterion, so for example, when it comes to need, the inspector for the Wandon End decision considered that there was a need for renewable energy generation, and therefore it complied with that criterion of paragraph 155. When it comes to housing, we don't have a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore there's a need for housing. So those 2 types of development, an applicant may well be able to identify a need for those forms of development. Whereas with other forms of development, whatever they may well be employment development or whatever in the green belt, they would have to identify a need because there's no known need for that form of development. And that was the case with regards to the site down at 3 Horseshoes Lane, I think it was. There will be another there's another application on that site, which will be for your consideration of this committee at the next meeting. The minutes, the agenda will be published tomorrow, I understand. And the final criterion of paragraph 155 is that it's in a sustainable location. And the site, for example, at in Nebworth Parish was considered not to be in a sustainable location. Whereas, for example, when it comes to solar farms, they're generally in the countryside. But with regards to this site at Wandon End, it's quite very close, in fact, to Luton. So the inspector there considered that it was a sustainable location for a solar farm. So those are 3 criteria that you consider. So even if we've determined it is grey belt, that's not the end of the matter. We have to consider an application against those 3 criteria. So we can come to a view it is grey belt, but it is inappropriate development because it doesn't meet one of those criteria in paragraph 155. Hopefully that will explain to you. But we will be doing some further training on grey belts, just so to help, because I think it's something that we'll be dealing with a lot more in the future.
A couple of cheeky questions of my own. So from what you said about the need for the thing, does that mean at such point we have reached our target for 5-year housing supply? That would alter. That would have an impact on what constitutes grey belt or not. That's the first question. The second one, following on from that, is when do we think we might reach that point?
Right. Okay. It won't have a consideration as whether something's grey belt, but it would be relevant as to whether it's an appropriate development in the green belt or in the grey belt in this instance. So it will have a bearing in terms of whether there's an identified need for a particular form of development. It's in cases where the council has a 5-year housing land supply, it would be for an applicant to demonstrate that there's a particular need for a particular type of development. For example, a retirement village where there's a shortfall in retirement accommodation. A council may well have an overall 5-year supply of housing, but there's a shortfall in particular forms of housing, for example, for older people, or social rented housing or affordable housing. They may well be able to put forward a case that there's a particular need for that type of housing. But in terms of a council that does have a 5-year housing land supply, it'd be more difficult for them to identify a general need above and beyond what is generally required in terms of housing. In other words, a council would, in those circumstances, say, well, you should be looking to the urban area for this housing, not to the green belt, even if it is grey belt. And you had was there a further question? Sorry. Oh, when will we achieve? I
don't want to date.
I think your question was when we will achieve a 5-year housing land supply.
Yes.
I don't know. Is the answer to that one? If we approve some small, medium housing schemes and some larger housing schemes, I see no reason why we can't achieve a 5-year housing 5-year housing land supply within the next 12 to 18 months. But it all depends upon what happens related to matters that are outside my control and in your control. It all depends what comes forward and what is approved, and how quickly also things like reserve matters are approved and things like that, which can affect how quickly a site can come forward to start delivering housing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Prescott definitely wants to ask a question.
On that same topic, Chairman, Sean, at what point after we've given permission does a development, can it be counted as part of the 5-year plan? And I'm thinking in particular of the enormous thing we approved outside of Baldock. I mean, I know that was just an outline permission. In fact, it was a master plan, I think. So that's probably not. But I mean, something of that scale, surely that would have a significant impact on us reaching the 5-year plan.
It will at some point, but not at this point. The reason I say that is that as you start to develop a site such as a large site such as Baldock, to start off with, the delivery of housing is relatively slow. So at this point, even if you were to grant planning permission for Baldock tomorrow, very few houses would be delivered within 5 years because of all the infrastructure you have to put in place, etc. But, for example, several years hence, that site would make a significant contribution to the 5-year housing land supply then. So we're not just thinking about today in terms of the 5-year housing land supply. We want to be able to achieve, say, in 5 years' time, a 5-year housing land supply then. So we're thinking of the future with these larger sites. So a 5-year housing land supply relates to a particular point in time. Today, we don't have a 5-year housing land supply. In 1 year's time, we could have a 5-year housing land supply. It is possible that we don't, and we may well need to look at approving more schemes, or we'll get more speculative applications wherever they may be in the Greenbelt or beyond the Greenbelt. So smaller and medium-sized sites, such as, for example, the site that we considered earlier, I'd class that as really more a medium-sized site, albeit it's classed as major, can be delivered in totality within 5 years because of its scale. And there should be nothing to prevent that whole site from being built out in full in 5 years. Whereas with the very large sites, they usually take, well, I've dealt with schemes, dealt with an application for a new town near Bedford called Wixham's, and that's still being constructed. And that came onto my desk when I worked at Bedford Borough Council in 1999. So the larger the site, the longer it takes to build them out, of course. Okay, so but they are important, these large sites, in delivering housing for the future and delivering housing during the local plan period, which is a 15-year period, not a 5-year period. And so we're not just looking at 5 years, we're looking at 5, 10, 15 and beyond.
At what point?
At what point?
So when they're built, when they're ready for occupation.
Well, that is an unknown at this particular time with regards to some of these large sites. It all depends on factors that are beyond our control. We haven't even got an outline application, for example, at the moment for the allocated site at Baldock. How long will that process take, for example? But I do anticipate that, for example, a site like Baldock in future years will make a significant contribution to the 5-year housing land supply. And will mean that we'll be able to, for example, resist speculative, unwanted applications at that time. What it won't do now, because we don't even have an outline application at the moment, deliver any. It's unlikely to deliver any houses within the next 5 years at this point in time. So we are looking at smaller housing sites to deliver our 5-year housing land supply now. I mean, it is possible with a fair wind and progress of the application at Baldock, it will start to deliver housing within 5 years. But I don't know at this stage. I can't predict what will happen with regards to future applications for outline planning permission, future applications for reserve matters. Those matters do take time, and so larger sites don't generally deliver housing in the short term. They deliver large amounts of housing in the medium to long term. So it will help us in the future, certainly.
I think we're at the end. I'm teasing now. Yes. Have we noted your report, Sean? Sean's report is for noting, which we duly note. And that's the end of the meeting. The next meeting of the PCC is on the 4th of September, 2025. Thank you very much. I've just got to say, when we go into part 2 again like that, I'm really tempted when we come back in, just as the cameras come back, I'm going to say something like, gosh, that's shocking. You all look really shocked and people will wonder what it is we've been talking about. That'll get us in the comment.
That would be